Chase Thomas podcast. My nephew needs me to record. See, I already hate it. I hate it.
All right, hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Chase Thomas podcast from still the aforementioned Chase Thomas, coming to you live from Knoxville, Tennessee, Everything School HQ. Joining me from volreport.com, it is Ryan Sylvia. Ryan, good evening, sir. How are you?
I'm doing good. Can't complain. We were just talking back in Knoxville, so it's good to be back here in the hometown Knoxville, I guess. So I'm feeling good as we're entering, I guess, the latter stage of the transfer portal for both football and men's and women's basketball, it feels like.
Yeah, it feels like everything's kind of dying down. We'll see. I think Tennessee just got added to a list of the Cal transfer receivers, so we'll see if they actually visit, because we've seen Tennessee linked to several wide receivers in the portal, and they all have not visited. So they did land a defensive tackle, which is good, out of Grand Valley State. That I don't care if Randy Gardner targets someone. I'm like, all right, I'm in. I'm in. I think they're gonna be okay. It's probably a good way to live. But Tennessee men's basketball feels like it's done. One more spot theoretically, but I think you and I both know kind of where that last spot is probably going to go, if it maybe announced sooner rather than later, ultimately. But with 12 bodies, man, this is going to be a vastly different depth chart than what we just saw a season ago, where Tennessee was at times where it's like, oh, we got 7 right now. That's not going to be a problem, I don't think, in 25-26 with Tennessee adding 2 more bodies this week. Ryan Sylvia.
Yeah, it's a deep roster, and you addressed some positions of need, which I think is good. You needed a 2 guard really badly, and you got 2 of them. And we'll see how ready the freshman coming in from France, Massamba, is ready to go in year 1. But you have to feel good about Amaree. It's a guy with SEC experience as a freshman. It's a couple of years ago, and then played in the ACC for a handful of games, and then started every game at Louisiana Tech. So it's a guy that's experienced. It's a guy that can shoot the ball, plays good defense. Rick Barnes seemed to like what he brings on the defensive end, the tenacity he has there. So it fits. And that's kind of been, I guess, the whole theme of what Rick Barnes has done this transfer portal cycle. Is it's a bunch of guys that fit Tennessee's system. He didn't go out and grab someone because, hey, you need a 2 guard. You need someone that can play off ball. So let's just go get someone just for the sake of getting someone. He was still intentional with bringing someone in that's comfortable, being the scorer that they're going to need to be off the ball, but still wanting to play defense and wanting to do all these little things that not everyone wants to do in college basketball. But Rick Barnes makes it a mandatory thing. And he got a bunch of guys that fit it. It's going to be a deep team. And I think you have to be pretty happy with how things shook out as a Tennessee fan.
I mean, they're just long. Like everywhere you just look at it, and you're like 6'4", 6'5". Everyone's just long. They're going to defend. They're going to be very switchable. And the competition this summer and fall is going to be tremendous, because there are some guaranteed roles, like Jacoby Gillespie. Spoiler alert, will be starting as the lead point guard for Tennessee. Felix Okpara, I think we can pencil in as the starting 5, but even that, we'll see what JP Estrella looks like this summer and fall. But I mean, there's gonna be a battle with Cade and Jalen Carey for that 4 spot. There's gonna be a battle for how much Amaree Evans contributes with Nate Amen in the fold, because Amaree is a really talented 4-star coming in too, and he's gonna push for minutes. Bishop Boswell is not gonna give up that number 2 combo guard opportunity up. He's by all accounts had a good spring, so does he push with Amari Abram and guys like that? Then you have the 2 unknowns who feel more like a long-term project guys, and Henderson and Massamba. So I think it's just very interesting, all the different pieces that Barnes has assembled here. But I mean, with how much he lost from this past season, to be able to arguably put together a better all-around team in 25 is pretty amazing. I mean, we'll get to this. I mean, the cherry on top would have been Rodney Rice or McKneely, but you can't get everybody. Like, it's just one of those where it's just hard to get that many guys that you want in the boat. And also just not overpay, mess up roster, resource allocation, mess up roles, that sort of thing. So you're walking a fine line all throughout here, Ryan Sylvia. But when you look at the 2 this week in terms of Amaree Abram and Clarence Massamba, who do you think, in your estimation, just next year is the bigger intrigue to you?
I think it's Amaree Abram, and it's because I'm interested to see how he adjusts going back to the big time basketball. And like I said, he has the experience of playing in the SEC. He played 33 games as a true freshman with 22 starts at Ole Miss. Like, that's legitimate SEC experience. And he played decently well, 8 points a game on reasonable shooting splits. It was a down year and in a year where he only played 10 games at Georgia Tech, and then he kind of bounced back in year 3 at Louisiana Tech. I'm interested to see if what he was able to do, efficiency wise, shooting just a shade under 40% from 3 at Louisiana Tech, how much that can translate. Because if he can be a guy that you don't have any questions about on the defensive end and hit some timely threes, I think that's a big deal. I think the ceiling for him too is interesting, because like a comparable ceiling for him feels like maybe a Jordan Gainey, like once again, someone that you feel like you can be comfortable with on the defensive side of the ball, but someone that can also get hot fast and hit a few big threes. And maybe he won't be as big of a threat in the mid range or getting to the rim like Jordan Gainey proved he could be, but that similar role feels intriguing to me. And I feel like he would be a great 6-man. He would be that type of player. With who's on the roster, it feels like he's probably coming in to be that starter in the backcourt next to Jacoby and below Nate Ament. But I feel like he kind of fits that 6-man spark in a way. So it'll be interesting to see how exactly they use him. Like I said, I think he'll probably be the starter, but it's interesting to kind of compare him to Jordan Gainey and see those similarities and how Tennessee used Jordan Gainey so effectively.
Yeah. It's funny. I was watching the Abram, and not to toot my own horn, but I'm kind of a Amaree Abram expert after spending an hour on YouTube diving into that old Miss tape. He's not afraid to shoot. Like, he is a combo guard who is not afraid to get shots up. He is all over the place in terms of where he's going to be willing to rise and fire. And it's kind of one of those things where when you get a low-level transfer up, like a Gainey, right? Like, that's a big jump up from USCFC. The difference with Abram is, like you said, like, he started and played a lot his freshman year. He's gone a circuitous route here, going from here to he had kind of a tech thing going with Georgia Tech to Louisiana Tech, but he is someone who knows the rigors and grind of an SEC schedule, and he's someone he's long. I think he's a pretty good shooter, and I think he doesn't have to be, like, he obviously doesn't have the upside of Rice or McKneely. We can say that. But you might not need that, because if Gillespie and Ament is anywhere close to what he could be, if Carey is more of an offensive threat than we're expecting, if JP Estrella makes that leap, you look around and you're like, you don't actually need him to be like a high volume guy. You might need him to be kind of a Jordan Gainey type, where every couple of games, we need Abram we need an Abram just rise and fire 10 to 15 shots up and make a couple threes, go to the line, that sort of thing, and bail you out when some of the other guys are struggling. Because I think that might be just what they need. When you look at the rest of the starting five and where things are going, you kind of just need like a KCP type, right? Like, that's what I was looking at here, was just kind of, if he can be KCP for Tennessee next year, I'd be very happy.
I think that's fair. And I think a lot of it relies on, as you kind of alluded to, what Nate Ament are you getting? Are you getting the Nate Ament that's going to take over college basketball next year and hit that ceiling as a true one and done? Or is it going to be someone that I heard someone kind of describe him as, like, he'll be a guy, well, he'll probably be a one and done no matter what at Tennessee, and he'll go on to the NBA, and you're 4 or 5 down the road in the NBA, maybe it really starts to click and he becomes some NBA star, and it becomes more of a trivia fact that, oh yeah, Nate Ament, that guy in the NBA that's a 4-time All-Star, he went to Tennessee, instead of, oh yeah, I remember when Nate Ament took Tennessee to the Elite Eight. And I'm curious to see which side of the coin. Is it going to be that side where, he's got all these raw talents and he's not able to necessarily put them together in his 1 year of college that we all think he's going to play? Or is he going to be someone that just takes over in year one? Because he certainly has the abilities. If you watch the film, he certainly looks like a guy that's capable of it. If you do get that side of it, then yeah, Amaree Abram, he doesn't have to do anything crazy. He needs to, space the floor, hit a couple shots, and play that good defense and be that KCP type of player. But to me, it depends, what are you getting out of Nate Ament? If you're getting the superstar, sure, not really anyone else needs to show up on the offensive side too much. Like, obviously, he can't do it all himself, but you don't have to rely as much. If it's a more average Nate Ament, like if you get Julian Phillips, who's starting to turn his corner in the NBA, if you're getting a Keon Johnson even, who had his flashes at Tennessee, but now he's looking really good in the NBA, if that's the type of one and done it is, you are going to need a guy like Amaree Abram to step up and be a big-time scorer, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's okay. I mean, because I think Rodney Rice, bigger role there. McKneely, that's still kind of the one. That's the one I would have rather had, honestly, at a UVA, just because I think he's more of a plug and play Chaz guy. But I think it comes down to Ament, like you just laid out. Like if Ament is a, we can't say Cooper Flag type, but if he is, I don't know, Paolo Banchero maybe, is he?
Even if you can get like a VJ Edgecombe from Baylor from
Yeah,
last year, that's another number. He's on my mind because he was the number 4 overall recruit in that year's
yeah.
class. If you can duplicate that, like you have to be pretty happy with what Nate Ament is.
I mean, I was listening to the folks fan run this morning that like mentioning what Kevin Durant. Like I didn't realize Kevin Durant was a 26-point guy his freshman year at Texas. Like in college, that's just bonkers numbers. Like that's a crazy freshman points per game. But it's like, can a man get to 20? Like if can a man get to 20 a game?
20 a game in this day and age, it feels like, or just I'm really out forever in college basketball. Like that's an elite category to be in. Like
Yeah.
you score 20 points a game, like that is, you are one of the best scorers in the country. So if you can get a 20 points per game Nate Ament, like, then all of a sudden it's like, okay, maybe this team is all of a sudden reloading to the level that you could be looking at 3 straight Elite Eights. Because right now, if I don't know if I'm fully on board with another Elite Eight trip, I'm not ruling it out. Man, if you're getting 20 points from Nate Ament, you might be time to book.
It just depends on what a man is, right? And maybe what JP Estrella is, because I think he's the other one too, where he has the kind of high ceiling upside where if you have a post guy when the shots aren't falling from deep, if JP turns into that guy at the back of the basket, he has post moves. He's good inside. Like if JP is healthy and makes that kind of jump inside, where he is someone who can play in crunch time and someone you can rely on when things get tight on the perimeter, you're like, well, just throw it in JP and let him go to work. That's another part where it's like, then you're like Abrams, the 4th option, which is probably where you want to be and where he could be really good is if you have, because I think Ament's being number 1 option. I think Gillespie is going to be helping facilitate Ament, and Ament's number 1, Gillespie number 2. Someone in the post, I would suspect that Barnes would prefer one of them to pop as a post scorer, a consistent post option, and then 4 being Abram. That would be my guess. I don't know if you agree with the hierarchy, but I think that's what he would envision.
I think on paper, like if you could draw it up how you wanted to, that'd be about right. I'm sure that's also what they said last year with Jordan Gainey. Like, hey, he's the 6th man, but most of the time he's going to be that like 3rd or 4th option. There was times where he was your number 1 option, and you just go to the hot hand and you play it, and that worked out multiple times that he was your number 1 option, and you won the game. But I'm sure on paper last year, Rick went in saying, all right, Chaz is the number 1 option. Then maybe you go to Igor, then see if Zakai's got if his shot's falling today, and then maybe you go to Jordan Gainey. It's just sometimes it works out that way, sometimes it doesn't. I think what you need though is you need one of the 4 forwards. Yeah, Felix, JP, Cade, and Jalen Carey. If you can get one of those 4 to give you somewhat consistent offense, I think you take that and you run with it. I'm not sure. It's kind of, you have to see it to believe it though, because it's been a while since Tennessee's been able to truly run some of their offense through the post, because it's been some elite rim protectors and some great lob threats, but not a dump it in the post when you need a bucket type of guy. And I'm not 100% sure if any of those guys are going to be able to score at a higher clip than we'll probably see Amaree Abram score at, assuming that he does get the minutes that we kind of expect him to right now, given what the roster looks like.
Your gut feeling here on April 30th. Will the Vols ultimately feel the sting of not landing Rice or McKneely?
I think you'll feel the sting in the fact that those are 2 really good options. And I agree with you. I think McKneely was the better of the 2 options because he could, I think if you land McKneely, you probably game plan around him as your leading scorer. If you landed Rodney Rice, you probably, I don't think you have that same level of expectation that you would for McKneely. But both of those guys would have been perfect at Tennessee, it feels like, with what they needed in that just big position of need at the 2 guard that they needed for pretty much the entirety of this transfer portal period. I think you'll feel it in the respect that this team would be a step or 2 better without them, but I don't think that it'll be like the narrative of the season of, man, Tennessee was just one of those 2 guys away from being this ridiculously different team, and now they're a 5 seed or a 6 seed. I don't think that'll be the feeling as this season progresses, but at the same time, I think you certainly have to wish that they did land one of those 2 guys, because they're really good players. They fit what Tennessee needed. And even though you should be happy with an Amaree Abram addition, those 2 guys are a little bit on a higher level than him, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's fair. I just think I'm just so excited about Nate Ament that like I'm just not gonna like
It
lose my mind
overshadows
over
a lot of.
the KCP role, right? Like, yeah, I'd prefer
Yeah.
McKneely, but it's also like we kind of had that last year with Chaz. Like it's like this is different. Like Chaz was good, but let's throw in a 5-star number 2 overall player behind only AJ over there at BYU. It's pretty good. It's pretty unreal that this player is going to be playing for the Tennessee Volunteers this year. And the upside I think is still fair, and especially here in late April, let's get crazy with the upside. Like let's just be like, yeah, what if he is Kevin Durant or Carmelo Anthony or Paolo Banchero or whoever here as a true freshman, and you're like, woof, this is different. This is an obvious number 1 overall pick type guy, and what if, like he could be better than AJ over there in at BYU. That's in play. He could be the best freshman in the country. Like that's absolutely in play.
That's the fun part about having
Yeah,
a guy on a team you cover that has so much potential. Is you can just sit there and you can think about all the possibility. He could be the number 1 overall pick. He could be an NBA superstar. He could lead Tennessee to their first Final Four. Like you could dream up all those possibilities of how good he could be, but at the same time, it's April 30th as we record this. We're turning the page to May, so a lot could happen this upcoming season. He could, live up to expectations and more. He could uh, follow maybe that path that I laid out earlier that I've heard some people mention where, he's good but not great at Tennessee and really finds his footing in the NBA and has a great NBA career, or it could be, a multitude of possibilities. But that is the fun part about having a guy that just has such a high ceiling, is you can just kind of dream up all those different little situations about how good he could be and how fun it'll be to watch him.
I like it. In terms of the rotation here, Ryan Sylvia, do you think it's all set, or do you think that there are some battles still to be seen? So fans who are already expecting 1 through 5, this is gonna be this. How much would you push back and be like, I don't know. There's at least 1, maybe 2 battles that you're expecting really are going to go to the wire here over the next couple months.
The one I would be the most paying attention to would be at the 4 spot between
Mm.
Cade and Jalen Carey. I still lean Jalen Carey at this moment. I think you brought him in to have a guy that can somewhat stretch the floor. He's not going to, shoot the lights out, but he's someone that you have to respect that 3-point shot, and he brings you a little bit more of a physical scoring presence down low at times. So that's my pick to start there, but I don't think I would be surprised at all if Cade Phillips stepped in and became a starter in year 3. Like that wouldn't be a shocking thing. The other 4 spots, they feel kind of locked. I would be surprised if JP Estrella passed Felix Okpara on the depth chart. I would be pretty surprised, obviously, if Nate Ament and Jacoby Gillespie aren't 2 of the starters for Tennessee. Then the shooting guard spot, I just don't see a better option on the roster than Amaree Abram. So it just feels like a natural fit there that he would slide in and be that starter. Maybe Bishop Boswell can come in and impress, but to me, it feels like those 4, I feel pretty good about those being the starters. Something surprising would have to happen, whether it's a reserve guy really stepping up or one of those guys not living up to expectations in the preseason. But that 4 spot, I think, will be a little bit interesting at first, and something to monitor between Carey and Cade Phillips.
Rick Barnes and I are going to be going back and forth, Rock and Cena style, once in a lifetime over the next year is my guess here, Ryan Sylvia, because look, Limp Bizkit, My Way is going to be playing, and it's going to be me making the case for JP Estrella starting over Felix Okpara, and Barnes being like, we need the defense, and Felix can do more than you think. We're going to throw it into him a couple of. Remember those early possessions this season where they were like, let's let Felix cook inside, and he's going to do some ISOs. We're going to dump it inside, and it's like, no, he's a rim runner. He's Clint Capella. Like that's okay, but that's what he is. Like there was this idea where it's like, oh, there might be more to the bag inside than we might have anticipated. No, there was like that's okay. Maybe something else happens, but it just reminds me of just like the Jemai Meshack shots and from last year where it's like all these shots like he's gonna shoot threes. Jonas Adu 2 years ago. There's like the threes are there. The threes are coming. Threes never came. I think Felix Okpara is a really good basketball player. I think he is still going to always be limited in the half court. That all being said, the only way for JP Estrella to realize his potential is JP Estrella to play a lot of minutes, and that means dealing with some defensive issues. It means going through some lumps because he missed all of this past year. But I still think he's a high floor guy or high ceiling guy on this team, and I just think he's got to get minutes. And Barnes has to live with some rough minutes from JP Estrella early on to see what he can ultimately be. Because look, I've never wavered on my JP Estrella stock here, Ryan Sylvia, and I need him to play. So Rick Barnes and I are going to be at war because I'm worried he's going to bury JP for not because he's deeper at inside than he's been in a little bit. And it's like I just could see a scenario where we see a 3-man rotation inside with Cade, Carey, and Felix. And it's going to drive me nuts because I'm like, JP's got to play. And the only way JP's going to get better and more confident and be able to be kind of the star potential that he has to play. And I don't know. High floor is Felix Akpara. High ceiling is JP. But maybe JP is at the 4. Maybe that's the way around it. JP stretches the floor a little bit more than we anticipated, and he maybe settles in there a little bit more than we're anticipating. But I don't know. That's my battle, and I'm going to see if I can push Rick Barnes over the course of the next 5 months to be like, you got to do it, Rick. You gotta face some issues with JP early on and let him work it out on the court because that's the only way he's going to get better. It's the only way he's going to maximize his potential. He's got to play. He's got to go through the lumps.
I think what saves you there is I don't know how much Rick will want to go to a lineup where JP or Felix isn't in. So assuming you get 25-ish minutes, maybe you're pushing 30 for Felix, depending on foul trouble, you're still getting your good 15 to 20 from JP. So even if it's off the bench, I think you're still getting a good handful of JP Estrella minutes. And I
unless
agree.
he really likes Dwayne Brown.
That's true. There's those options in there, I guess. But I feel like we'll see a good amount of JP, and I feel like this could be I don't want to say a breakout season. Like I don't think he's going to score in double digits, but I think it'll be a season that could be a nice building block to a nice career. I mean, he's someone that has 3 years of eligibility left, and maybe that redshirt year is a blessing in disguise because now you get to keep him an extra year, and he could develop into a really nice player by the end of his career.
That's true. I don't know. I got to just start the movement now. It's April 30th as we're taping this, Ryan Sylvia. I've got to be on it just in case Rick is, you know how Coach Barnes does. He's often scrolling the Tennessee Vols from various podcasts on YouTube. Big late night YouTube scroller. Rick Barnes, many forget. And I just wanted to, he's like, you know what? I'm going to lean in what Chase is saying here. We're going to get a lot of JP Estrella at the 5. I'm going to alternate starting him and Felix at the 5 for the first couple of games of the season to see which works better.
Yeah.
Just give it a real opportunity.
Rick's definitely listening. The first time I saw him pull out a smartphone, I was a little bit surprised. I was like, wow, I mean, I guess, pretty much everyone has one nowadays then, because part of me just figured he had a flip phone or something still when he was texting recruits on a flip phone or something. But
I want to believe that Rick is like a green dot snub. That would be fantastic stuff. Where he's like, I won't text anybody without the blue dots. Won't do it.
We say all this, but he's probably a tech. Well, we know he does do the old man. There's the picture of him with the phone, and he's leaning all the way back to get the view of it. So I guess we do know he does fit the archetype of old man with the iPhone.
But he's still great at what he does. Kim Caldwell, going into year 2. Now that you've looked at how this roster is ultimately going to look here on the ladies' side of things, Ryan, I mean, how much better do you think it can be than year 2? And are you certain that they're going to be a better all-around upside group than what Tennessee had this past year based on losing folks like Jewel Spear and company?
I don't know if I'm certain that they'll be better, but I think they'll be better. You have to really like what they did in the transfer portal. They brought in some forwards that they needed to fill out the roster, and they brought in a guard who can score at a high clip in Nia Robertson. So I think you have to like what they did. Part of it depends how ready that group of freshmen are. If Paldo can come in and be an instant starting caliber type of point guard like she's kind of ranked to be, then that's great. If Denia Prawl and Jada Civil can come in and be really nice rotation pieces and finish some games for you and play at a high level as a true freshman, then I think that's how you take that step towards having a nice ceiling, because you return a lot of your kind of stars. You lose Samara Spencer and Jewel Spear, and those were 2 really good players for you. But Talaysia Cooper returns. Ruby Whitehorn returns with the year under her belt in the system and at Tennessee. Z Spearman returns at the same situation as Ruby with the year under her belt, both at Tennessee and in the system. I think that you have to expect them to get more comfortable along with Talasia and take a step forward, which is saying something because they had such nice first seasons with Kim last year. But I think I'm not going to say it's 100% this team's better. You'll have to see it. But I think that this team could probably play themselves into where I'm at right now with them is probably about a 3 seed. I think Charlie Cream on ESPN had as a 2 seed in his way too early bracketology. I feel like this team feels like a really nice 3 seed, and that gives you a shot to get to the Elite Eight as a 3 seed. Like you have to really like that. And then you're hosting those first 2 rounds as well, as long as you're in that top 4. So it should be a team that takes a step towards being more of a national contender this year. Where I'm at though is the year after that, sure, you lose Ruby Whitehorn, Z Spearman next year. You'll lose Talasia Cooper after 2 years. But that's when these monster recruiting classes start getting to those junior, senior years. That's when I think Tennessee could be like a truly scary team for a lot of people to deal with.
So you're not like, it's interesting. Like, I think there's just this anticipation that I find fascinating that next year it's like with all these freshmen 5-stars coming in and like just the buzz that Kim Caldwell's generated and just kind of her. I mean, I just think there's a lot of energy, around her program, around her, and they overachieved. That I think there's this natural expectation that it's like, all right, we're going to build off this Final Four. We're going to have a top 10 roster, and Talasia Cooper's back, and Ruby Whitehorn's back, C.C. Spearman's back, and now we're going to have some freshmen, and we killed it in the portal here. Like, this is a complete team. We're 10 deep again, and this team will be even better. And you're like, well, maybe. I mean, this team did pretty well this past year, and you're losing some talented players here. And it's not a guarantee. Like, they should be good again. But we also just it's a lot of turnover in a weird way where you're like, I don't know, like you're bringing in a lot of new faces. Like you said, we'll see what Naya looks like. You're bringing in with Barker, who just came off a Final Four. So that's great experience. But you just look at it and you're like, man, that's still a lot of new pieces to surround yourself with people who have only been in the program for a year too, right? Like you still have Talasia Cooper's only been in the system for a year, and along with Ruby and Z. So I don't know. There's still a lot of unknowns, but I don't know if you felt the same, but it just feels like the fan base is looking at it, and a lot of people are like, yeah, we're ready to roll. Like year 1 was just like we did we made do, but year 2, now that we've got a nice blend of returning talented vets, and then we've also got this big time freshman class that like, okay, yeah, this is how it's going to go. And you're like, well, maybe like there is a chance that they don't get as far as this past team and they don't mesh as well as this past team did. Right.
I mean, there was times last year where the Lady Vols felt like they were more loved by the fan base than the men's team. The men's team was like in line for a 1 seed at that point still, yeah. But there was just so much excitement and buzz that you mentioned about the Lady Vols program and what Kim was building so early, because
I mean, they beat the national champions.
Yeah. And the expectation was going into the season, like, hey, just make the tournament. Just if you make the dance, keep the streak alive, we'll go from there and we'll see what happens. And she went out and she had them as like a 3 or 4 seed, pretty consensus for the entire season until last week where, the wheels fell off momentarily. She got them back on the NCAA tournament and left I think a good taste in most fans' mouths that makes you optimistic going into this year. So I think that's part of the reason it carries over is you were able to get that upset win over Ohio State and get to a Sweet 16 and then play well in that Sweet 16 game too. And then, when you have the number 2 recruiting class on the ESPNW and then you parlay it with the number 1 class according to ESPN on the rankings they did today, that's a reason for excitement. So I think the excitement is valid. I think there's a lot of things to be happy about, to be excited about with what Kim Caldwell and the Lady Vols are doing. Is it a Final Four year? I mean, maybe. I wouldn't put my money on it just yet. Is she building a Final Four type program? I mean, I think the first step is to get the talent in there and to start winning. And she's proven that she can win big games already, beating that UConn team that you just talked about. And then now she's getting the good players in as well. So the formula's there. She's following the recipe. And I think it just takes a couple more good seasons. And then all of a sudden you're knocking on the door of being that true juggernaut national title type of contender that the Lady Vols have always been capable of being, obviously, with how Pat Summitt ran the ship back in the day.
Ryan, Sylvia, what can the good folks check out from you and the team over at volreport.com this week?
Yeah, we'll have more coverage of, football offseason, transfer portal, where outgoing Tennessee players are going, if Tennessee can bring any more incoming guys, visits, all of that stuff. Men's, women's basketball, baseball season is still marching on. Softball's only got one SEC game left or series left, I should say. before they head into the SC tournament. So we're getting into crunch time here for baseball, softball, everything Tennessee athletics. We have you covered at Vol Report.
I love it. Go subscribe today if you are not already. Ryan, Sylvia, thank you as always, my friend, and we'll talk again next week.
Thanks, Chase.
All right, we're back here on the Chase Thomas podcast, where I'm now joined by a first-timer. We're in East Tennessee, but we're going a little bit further east on this edition of the program because we're going to Bradley Central High School, home of the Bears, with Damon Floyd, longtime coach now. I mean, is this year 20 or year 19?
This will be 20 coming up. Season 25 will be 2025 will be year 20 for me. Yeah, long time.
Does it feel like 20 years?
No, it seems like it wasn't long ago. Years just go by really quick. But when I look in the mirror and I see the gray hair, then I know it's been 20 years.
Hey, count your blessings on the hair part of it, though, because it could be no hair to look at.
That
and
is
it's
true.
just like one of those gradual things. So you'll take the gray, right? When you look at, your first year to now, like what would you say people around you who've known you for all these 20 years are like, man, Coach Floyd has changed a lot here. This is not what I remember when he first got started. Is there something you would guess that they might throw out there?
I don't know. That's hard to say because me personally, I don't think I've changed a whole lot. I mean, the game has changed and what we do now as a program has changed, with social media and all that stuff. Because back when I started, there's a whole lot of stuff you didn't have to worry about that you do have to worry about today.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think as much as I've changed, I try to be just, who I am and stay true to that. And of course, some people like it and some people don't, but that's part of life. But no, I don't think I've changed very much. But like I said, I think the game has changed.
What's the biggest change from when you first started 20 years ago to now? Purely football wise.
So not social media, because that would be
just football, like in terms of just the game itself.
I think the depth that you get into in high school now, so the schemes, they're so sophisticated. The kids know so much more now than we did 20 years ago. Back then we ran, maybe one or two coverages, and now you're seeing a bunch of sophisticated offenses, defenses, and just the knowledge of and we play in a really good league. Mm-hmm. So there's some really good coaches, but I think the knowledge of the kids is probably the biggest thing. They really do understand and grasp, what's going on and what we're trying to attack or how they're trying to attack us. So I think it's without a doubt the schemes.
Has this offseason been particularly different based on what you saw last year? Because obviously, you 13-0 for the first time since 1976, I want to say. 2 years ago, last year, the wins and losses, it just doesn't go your way ultimately. But when you think about this offseason, and we're now here going into May, have you changed things up based on what you saw last year? Has it been kind of was it this past offseason just a lot of reflection in terms of what happened in 24 versus 23?
Well, obviously, two totally different teams as far as talent. We were very talented the 2023 season, and we did not have the talent last year. But our kids played extremely hard. We had some tough losses. I think we had 6 games with maybe 1-score losses. Yeah. We had some injuries that really hurt us. But I think for me personally, in the long run, it was really good because we kind of just needed to reset as a program and get back to what we felt, got us to this point, which was, hard-nosed, physical football, running the football, because we got to the point where we had to change offenses. We've always been more spread and kind of sophisticated on offense. We got to the point where we were in the wing tee and we're just running the football. And it was keeping us close, keeping us in some games that really, when you play Maryville and Bearden, and Maryville actually blew us out. But when you play a team like Bearden, who's talented, Cleveland was very talented, Farragut, but we had a chance in those games. It was about running the football. So I think this offseason, we really went back to said, look, our best defense is when we run the ball, right? And if we can keep the other offense off the field. So that's one of the things that we're really focusing on, that we focused on in years past. And then we were talented, so we like to throw it around and get our playmakers the ball and have some fun. So I think the biggest thing is you got to run the football to win. If you look at Oakland, over the years, they're going to run the football. And I think so for us to reset and kind of go back to that philosophy of the first thing we're going to do is install the run and make sure we're good at that first.
Does it feel like this year going in 25, obviously with spring ball and summer and everything else, does it feel like you're going to be able to have the personnel closer to what you really want, closer to more of what you, in 23 versus 24?
Well, kind of. I mean, so we were fortunate in the fact that we actually started 11 different offensive linemen last year. So we had 6 guys that have season-ending injuries on our offensive line. But now we've got all those guys coming back. We lost 4 quarterbacks to injury last year.
Yep.
But now we've got Tyler Cook who's coming back. He'll probably be our starter. He got hurt after play 4 in the first play of the game. So he played 4 plays and got hurt for the rest of the season. And then his little brother, who's just going to be a sophomore, got 8 games of experience. So I feel like experience-wise, we're a whole lot better than we were. But, we were in close games and lost them. And really that probably comes down to me. I should have did some things different to win some games. But we have experience is what I'm trying to say. We have a lot of guys that's played a lot of football. We didn't lose a whole lot. I think we had 6 seniors that even played last year. I think we had 9 on the team. So it was 6 that actually played. So experience will not be an excuse. We've gotten a lot stronger over the offseason. But obviously we still got to go out and do it on the field. So we got some guys that we feel like can make some plays, and it's our job to get them the ball, and they got to make some plays in space. And then defensively, we're excited with what we got. I think all 7 of our front on defense is coming back. So there's a lot of things to be excited about. But bottom line is we got to stay healthy.
Yeah. If you could go back and tell yourself one thing based on what you know with how the 24 season went, what would you go back and tell yourself going into week 1?
Oh man, last year was rough. Just from an injury standpoint. I mean, we lost a lot of kids, not minor injuries. I mean, we lost kids that were done for the season. So I don't know if there's any one thing. I mean, it was just the way it fell, because the year before we had no one get hurt for the year. We had no one. We had one guy missed 3 games, but he came back. I don't know the reason that people were hurt, but
was that the worst you've ever seen in your 20 years injury-wise?
Okay. Yes, it was. And look, I'm not making excuses. It's reality. Like, we lost games. That is what it is. But the fact, the way our kids came together, I'm telling you, week 10, you didn't know if we were 9-0 or whatever our record was at that point. I mean, they really did come together. So it was refreshing. Like, it wasn't a drag to go to practice. Our kids showed up and did everything we asked. They worked hard. So it was a fun group to be around, even though you're losing games. And I think, once again, it kind of gave a different perspective of, like, this is why we do this. You want to win games, obviously, but it was cool to see our guys stick together in some hard times and adversity and still go out and give everything they had on Friday nights.
Did you see, because you go through all the different games and you talk about, like, the Maryville game was early. That was a little bit different, but you saw, like, Oakland, or you saw against Beard and you saw against Cleveland down the stretch, that these were close losses, that it was one of those situations, like, the record was a little bit misleading when you look at Bradley Central in 24, because it was like you were in those games down the stretch. What do you think was the biggest thing that just flicked on, even if the wins weren't there? What light bulb went off with a lot of these guys who are going to be back this year? They're like, okay, we have something to work with. Even if the wins weren't there, we were fighting pretty hard down the stretch, and we can use this for 25.
Well, I can tell you this: in the offseason, motivation has not been a problem. We always like to look forward to the next year, but we like to remind them a little bit of, look, this is where we were last year. So
yeah.
It's not been real hard to motivate them in the weight room and those kind of things. But at the end of the day, last year's last year. We've got to move on and prepare, because really we're starting spring practice tomorrow, and what we did the last 5 games of the season is not what we're going to do this year. So it's kind of like restarting. So a lot of those things those guys did, those rules and assignments, those kind of things are going to change a little bit. So really, I guess I'm talking to myself more than anybody. I've got to move on to this season. Last year's over, and it's all about 2025 now.
Are you one of the, because there's like 2 schools of thought here with coaches. It's like they really dwell on the wins too much, where it's like, man, I gotta really make sure to enjoy this. Or are you one of the coaches who really just, it's hard for you to move on from the losses? Based on how you're talking about the 1-score games, I think I know where you're going to go with this, but which way do you typically lean?
Oh, it's definitely, I'm way too negative, and I tell our kids this all the time, and I apologize to them, as a coach, our job is to point out the negative. So I very rarely point out the positive, and I know that's a flaw of mine. But no, even in our good seasons, it's hard to enjoy it. I mean, you look back and think, oh, you did good things, but you don't have time for it. You're always trying to get to the next one. Even in the off season, it's after a good season. You're always looking forward to the next year. So I like I said, that's one of my flaws is thinking of the negatives and the losses instead of the wins. I probably should do that more, but I wish I could, but I can't. So I don't know. I don't have an excuse for it, but it's reality.
How do you combat it? Like, do you read certain books, certain podcasts, or things you're like that you've gotten into more as you've kind of evolved as a head coach, or is it just, man, this is just how I am. This is just how I'm wired.
Well, that's just how I am.
Yeah.
That's the way I am. I tell my wife that all the time. That's just the way I am. But I think the biggest thing is golf. I need to go golfing more.
Yeah.
Golf as much as possible.
There you
I
go.
say that jokingly because I do love to golf. I'm not any good.
Yeah.
But my wife is this, then it needs to be golf.
So is that where, like, when Coach Floyd calls it quits, like, we're going to find him all over the golf course? That feels like your next step.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Yes, I love to play golf. And really, it's good for me because I have no patience.
Yeah.
So you got to have some patience playing golf.
I was gonna say, I don't know if that's good for you then. If you have no patience, and if you're like, you got to put in the time. Like, it's just that whole Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hour rule where you gotta, to get good at something, it takes a little bit of time. That's why golf, it's hard because you just have to accept being bad at something and you have to spend a lot of time being bad, and sometimes around other people. Like, if I'm struggling with a podcast or writing or whatever, that's just me. Like, that's just for me, and a lot of times it's only me who notice. If you're with a bunch of buddies, and you're struggling on the golf course, and you got 4 hours locked in, that's tough, man. That's tough. You got to swallow some pride.
It makes me slow down. And a couple guys I play with, one in particular, like, he has got all the patience in the world. So it's good for me to just try to get out there and try to relax a little bit. But it is hard, especially when you're hitting out of the woods or, trying to find your ball all the time. It's hard to relax, but we have fun out there. So, that's my biggest hobby other than football is, get away and be outside and have a little activity.
Did you do anything fun for spring break this year? Did you get away and get to the beach, go anywhere fun?
Golf. Did a lot of golf.
Mm-hmm.
So
okay.
We actually decided this year we were, because you go to spring break and you go to the beach and it's really not warm enough to swim and you're always cold. So we're going to take a nice trip this summer. But it was strictly a lot of golf this spring break.
Okay, interesting. Are you a runner still or no?
I am. Well, not a lot. I mean, my miles are not very much. I do a couple miles in the morning, but just try to loosen up a little bit. But no, I am not a good runner at all. Now I've gotten to the point, run, walk, whatever it may be. But I try to stay in a little bit of shape.
I love it. When you look at the spring and summer position battles, you talk about spring practice starting tomorrow here, April 30th, as we're recording. What are the big spring, summer position battles that you're most looking forward to play out here over the next couple months?
I think our defensive line, we have some guys there that there's going to be some good competition. We have some skill spots that'll be very interesting. And, I get into naming names. I hate to because I'm going to leave somebody out. But, every position is really up for grabs right now. I mean, we as coaches, we have a pretty good idea.
Yeah.
But if whoever comes out and performs, and that's what spring's about, it's going out and finding out who can help you on Friday night. So every year I've done this, we always have people that surprise you. Unfortunately, there'll be some people that disappoint you as well. So we've got some young kids that we believe have a good future, and we got some senior upperclassmen that are tough, hard-nosed kids. So to be honest with you, like our running back Kenyon Phelps, he's going to be out for spring, but we're not going to. We know what he can do. We're not going to beat him up. I mean, he's going to get some work in. But, some guys like that, we're going to take care of. We have 2 offensive linemen that won't even, practice in the spring to get them back ready for the summer camp and stuff. So, but we got a lot of position battles, and that's the way it should be. That you got to go out and earn it.
When you look at installs and just kind of what this scheme is ultimately going to look like, do you think with a longtime Bradley Central Coach Floyd fans, are they going to week 1 they're like, oh, I recognize this we're going back to the bread and butter? Are you going to be able to get to that point?
I hope so. I mean, that's the plan. I feel like we've always had a pretty exciting offense, and that's what we enjoy on our coaching staff. That's what we enjoy coaching. We like to throw it around a little bit if the defense is going to let you. And, but at the end of the day, it depends on what the defense is giving you, and that's what we're not going to be stubborn about it. We're going to try to take what they give you and count the box and the coverage and that kind of thing. But we hope to put an exciting brand out there because I think we've done that for a lot of years, and that's what the kids enjoy. So at the end of the day, it's a game, and they need to have fun playing it, or you're probably not going to be very successful anyway if they're dreading it. So hopefully some good defense and score a lot of points.
What if the last couple years, you talk about just how much fun it is to throw it around and just how, like we started the program talking about just how advanced offenses and defenses have come at the high school level. What have you seen over the last couple of years that programs have done defensively to kind of limit how much you want to throw it around? Is there certain kind of schemes and personnel you're starting to see more and more of? Or like, okay, there, and I gotta, because it's just constantly, you're seeing it with Tennessee, with Heupel. Like there's certain things after a couple of years of tape, you have to evolve, you have to change some things because teams start smartening up a little bit more. I mean, you saw at the NFL, like the reason that a lot of teams don't throw downfield anymore is just because they've got three safety back there. They're playing quarters a lot. They're not giving you anything big. They want you to do 6 to 7 yard plays over and over again. They want to limit chunk plays as much as humanly possible. Are you seeing that a lot at the high school level over the last couple of years that you're like, this is interesting. I got to pivot a little bit, or I got to adjust on what I would like to do just because unfortunately, like defenses, there is something they're throwing at me over the last couple of years that like, it just is what it is.
Yeah, well, it's different. So, like, take McMinn County, for example. Bo Cable, he's been there 1 year less than me, and we've played every year. So there's no secrets between us, right?
Yeah.
But they always, you know what they're going to line up in. You know what coverage you're getting, but they're really good and they're really sound at it. So, but then you take a team, Maryville, for example, they may throw you some different wrinkles because we've went against Maryville for quite a while since Derek's, even when Coach Quarles was there, now Derek Hunt taking over, he coached for Coach Quarles. So, you know, you see some things. So we change things with them because we have seen each other so many times, and Farragut's kind of the same way. So yeah, there's certain teams that you want to kind of mix some things up, and to be quite honest, you throughout the year, you know, you're holding some stuff. Maybe you're practicing, but you don't show it to the other teams, or you don't put it on film, and you're holding those things. But then again, at the end of the day, it's about execution. I mean, there's lots of times we play Maryville, and you can pretty much tell what kind of run's coming from the formation, and they execute it and we don't, you know. So at the end of the day, it's about going out and execution. We tell our kids that all the time. It's not about what it's called, it's about executing what's called. And I know I've said Maryville many times, but they're a great example of there is no secrets. Now they're going to try to align different ways to, you know, to make you miss a line and create some gaps, but at the end of the day, you kind of know what's coming, and it's just hard to stop. And I think that's a good credit, you know, great credit to their coaching staff over the years, is because they do such a good job of coaching. So, you know, we've had some years where we've done some good things coaching, but we've got to do better. And our coaching staff knows that. And we take the blame. We're not the ones that blame it on the kids. You know, we don't, if the kid can't do it, we either got to find somebody else or we got to do something different. So hopefully we do that this year and adjust a little bit better.
I like that. When you look ahead here, because the new playoff seeding coming into fold here in 25 with the TSSAA, what do you think of the new playoff format? Or do you like it? Do you worry about anything with it? What do you think of it?
We got to get there first. So, you know, as long as we're there, we really don't care. Now, if we get there and you draw Oakland first, that's probably not good. But no, as long as we're there, we're happy. And, you know, actually last year was the first time we missed the playoffs in 15 years.
Yeah.
So we've got to get back to that. And I honestly, I don't know the format. I know it's different. I've not really looked at it to tell you all the details of it. So I guess my answer would be, let's just get there, and then we'll work again.
They're trying to save better. They're trying to flip the matchup, so where you're just not playing the same teams early over and over again. And I get it, but the travel might be very interesting for some programs early on.
It is for us anyway, though, because there's been, you know, well, actually we were in for 2 years. They did the Super 32. We were in Dobbins, Bennett, and Science Hill. We were in the same region, so it was 2.5-hour drives. And we actually played Dobbins, Bennett 1 year and Lightning 2 different times, so we got home at like 4 or 5 in the morning. But I will say this, and I'm fine either way they do it. I don't really have an opinion. But you match up the Science Hill, Dobbins, Bennett, those guys in the playoffs. Those are cool environments to play in. So even though you may face them a lot over the years, I kind of enjoy it because you do know what you're getting, and you know the environment there. And I assume they probably feel the same way when they come here. They know the environment a little bit. So, but it's also fun to go play places you haven't played. So, like I said, as long as we're in it, we're not going to complain.
Is there any place in East Tennessee that you haven't played that you wanted to play to this point, or no?
Oh man, I think we've been about everywhere.
I was going to say you had to have been just about anywhere. Nothing comes to mind, right?
No. I mean, you know, if it's a larger school, then we've probably played there. Because the Super 32, you had no choice. It was you know, the top 32, and you played everybody. So, but it's fun football. It is good and
Yeah.
it's tough. It's challenging, but man, that's exactly where we want to be. We want to be with the best teams, and we feel like over the years we've not shied away. I mean, we've scheduled Baylor in the regular season. We've scheduled Blackman, Riverdale. When they're not in our region, or we're not matching in the playoffs. We've scheduled them in the regular season, so we enjoy that kind of competition.
Is there, when you look back over the years, is there a best environment for you on the road? Do you remember your favorite road playoff game or even regular season game?
Dobbins Bennett playing away. Dobbins Bennett Stadium. That's it's 3 levels.
Yeah,
it's a really cool place to play. That's probably my favorite place we've played on the road. But now I would rather play at home.
Yeah.
I think we have the best environment of anybody I've ever seen or played in high school. So, we sit down in a bowl and our crowd's pretty good. I mean, they love to come to Bradley football games. So, but Dobbins Bennett on the road would have to be it.
Okay. Do you have any pregame rituals? I feel like you might be a ritual guy that you stick to some stuff.
Yeah, I'm not superstitious, but I like to do things that make me comfortable.
Okay.
So I don't want to go to the extreme of, whatever it may be. I do the same thing every time, but I do have routine.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not just for the game. I have routine in my life. Like that, there's certain things I do every single day. My wife gets mad at me, but I'll put my keys in the same spot every day, at the same spot at my house. And if they get moved, it bothers me,
Yeah.
So I would say I'm more routine. I'm not superstitious.
Yeah.
Because I've learned, throughout the years, you can be superstitious and guess what? We still get beat. So, but yeah, routine is what I would say.
Final thing, and we'll get you out of here. When you look at all the different opportunities for this summer for you, you get away. You're just like, I get to get my mind off football. I get to just go. Money is no object. Where is Coach Floyd going this summer? Anywhere you're going.
So this year we're just going to Florida.
Okay.
But the past 2 years.
But what part of Florida are we talking here?
You'll have to ask my wife, honestly. I
okay.
Can't think of it.
Oh, no, I meant like you have full – this is your call. Like money is no object here. You can go wherever you want to go this summer.
Oh, I would probably go Hawaii, but
just went last year. Hawaii's
last
awesome.
year was Jamaica, which was really cool.
Okay.
Well, the hurricane came.
Yeah.
So now we're kind of like, you know what? We're going to stay in the States, and because that was scary.
Yeah. Because
my wife, my 2 kids, we're all there, and when you're sitting there waiting on the hurricane to come, they're boarding up windows.
Yeah.
I love trips like that, but that is the main reason that this year we're like, you know what? We're just going to go to Florida.
Yeah.
So, but if I go anywhere, I've never been to Hawaii, so probably Hawaii.
I will tell you, we went to Maui because you have the choice. Like that's a big call. Do you go to Honolulu or Maui? Is the 2 big choices. Maui, man. Like I'll tell you, Maui was fantastic. There's just it's peaceful, but I will also tell you, you burn a day coming back here to East Tennessee because of the time difference. Like you lose an entire, like to wrap your head around. I just know you're a routine guy and I know that you love making the most of your time. You're going to have to like get yourself okay with burning an entire day. Like you are going to leave and you're going to travel across the country and you're going to lose hours and then you're going to get to and you're going to be like, what was that day? I didn't do anything except travel from sun up to sundown. And it's hard to deal with because you just lose so much time. It doesn't feel like it because you're going backwards or going forwards.
Yeah.
So it's great when you go there because you're like, wow, we're here and it's like 9 a.m. and I got still the whole day ahead of me. Man, when you come back, I'll tell you, like, you're not ready for it. When you get back from Hawaii, you're like, man, what happened? Like, I burned a day of my life. I don't get it back.
You're literally making me not want to go there.
I'm sorry. I knew I probably shouldn't have said this, but I'll tell you, the time there is great. It's just get ready for the day back. It's one day, but the day back is an interesting time.
Maybe if I do go, maybe I just don't come back. I stay.
It's a possibility. You got the Polynesian Bowl, maybe. You could be coach of the Polynesian Bowl one day. That could be something.
Yeah, maybe onto something there. I may need to apply before I go out there.
It's a pretty good gig. Like that's a good job. Like over there, coaching high school football in Hawaii. Pretty fun. I feel like
I think there's some great scenery over there in the golf course.
Not too bad. People seem to like it. People seem to like it. Pretty good weather, Coach Floyd. So how do the good folks support you and Bradley Central football here this spring and this summer?
Man, just show up at our games, support our kids and cheer them on and try to stay positive in the stands if you're in there. But, just showing up and showing the kids that you care. I think that's the biggest thing.
I love it. Go support Bradley Central football for all the good folks out here listening in East Tennessee. Coach Floyd, this was great. I appreciate you making the time tonight, and we'll have to check back in again soon.
Sounds good.
Nicely done, nephew. The Chase Thomas Podcast. Hell yeah.